Now, this wasn't on my bingo card for 2023. Meghan Markle might actually turn against Omid Scobie and sue him for Endgame. Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef, the Alternerd, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to another dose of the Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye, and oh my goodness, I bet this wasn't on your bingo cards for 2023, that's for sure, but yes, Megsy might actually sue Omid Scobie for Endgame. Now, I do implore you to watch the full video on this one because I'm going to give you the building blocks and it's all going to make sense by the conclusion at the end of this video. So let's crack on with this, shall we? Now, reports are coming out currently that sources close to Megsy, who named the pair of, quote, royal racists in a letter that she wrote to King Charles, have insisted that she never intended them to be publicly identified and that this letter in question was not leaked to Omid Scobie by anyone in her camp. Now, interestingly enough, in the wake of Endgame being released, and specifically the two, quote, royal racists being named in the Dutch version of Endgame being released, after all that, Hazza and Megsy, interestingly, are silent at the moment. Conspicuously so. And it does feel like it's a little bit of a calm before the storm, right? Now, we do have Pauline McLaren, Professor of Marketing and Consumer Research at Royal Holloway University of London. Now, she spoke to the Express and she said the following: it will be interesting to see what they do, i.e. Hazza and Megsy. And it will be, right? Now, she explains, before the book came out, they were trying to distance themselves from it. Close contacts of theirs were saying this was not a book they had contributed to. They were not supporting it. On the other side of things, she explains that Omid Scobie has been at lengths to distance himself, saying he's not a pal of Meghan's. The Sussexes may be worried the book will spoil a chance of restoring relations with the royal family, and many media outlets are reminding people that Omid Scobie was Harry and Meghan's mouthpiece. Yes, so yeah, we all believe that he is Hazza and Megsy's mouthpiece and cheerleader because of the Finding Freedom book, right? And yeah, Endgame is probably the final nail in the coffin of the Sussexes trying to restore relations with the royal family this year. I mean, remember, before Endgame came out, there were a flurry of articles that were released, and it seemed that Hazza and Megsy were certainly angling an invitation from the king to attend Sandringham this Christmas. Well, now that Endgame's come out and everything that's happened from the Dutch version of Endgame, that probably ain't going to happen, right? But out of this quote, the main takeaway is this: that even before Endgame was released, Hazza and Megsy were distancing themselves from it. Not only from Endgame, but from Omid Scobie as well. And they're continuing to stay quiet at the moment. Now, Omid Scobie, on the other hand, yeah, not so much. Most recently on Newsnight, saying it wasn't for him to apologise because he still wanted to know what had happened with the Dutch version of Endgame. Now, he's now changing his story a little bit as far as I'm concerned. He said that the book I edited and signed off on did not have names in it. Now, I'm taking that to mean the final manuscript, the final version that he edited and he signed off on, didn't have any names in it. Now, that's very, very different as far as I'm concerned from his first statement that he made when he said there's never been a version that I've produced that has names in it. So let's recap what we've gone through so far, right? We've gone through the notion that sources are coming out close to Megsy right now saying that she never intended for, quote, the pair of royal racists to be publicly identified and that she never leaked the letter to Scobie or anyone in her camp never leaked the letter to Scobie, right? We've then got this notion that they're remaining silent at the moment and that they have done even before Endgame was released, right? Distancing themselves from the book and from Omid himself. he's running his mouth off, right? Trying to do a lot of damage control, and as far as I'm concerned, failing. But as he's doing that, as I've just pointed out, the more he's talking, the more holes in his story are appearing as to how these names were ever published in the Dutch version of Endgame in the first place, right? So the more he's talking, the more, as far as I'm concerned, he's tripping himself up. So where does this all lead? Well, do you see a similarity of what's going on? You've got a letter between Megxie and her father-in-law where sensitive information out of that letter has been leaked and published and now has gone all the way around the world. Isn't it a similar situation to, let's say, the letter that Megxie wrote to her biological father, Thomas Markle Sr., that was then leaked to the Mail on Sunday, published, and then went all around the world? Let me just remind you what happened in that instance. She sued him. She sued the Mail on Sunday over the private letter. So what happened here is Prince has said in relation to all of this, quote, "I lost my mother and now I watch my wife falling victim to the same powerful forces." Could Omid Scobie now be thought of as, quote, the same powerful forces, right? They appointed law firm Schillings, who acted for Megxie and accused the paper of a campaign of false derogatory stories. Could that now be the case against Omid Scobie, right? The firm filed a High Court claim against the paper and its parent company over the alleged misuse of private information, infringement of copyright, and breach of the Data Protection Act 2018. And the claim comes after the Mail on Sunday published a handwritten letter from Megxie to her father, Thomas Markle Sr., sent shortly after she and Prince Harry got married in 2018. And here with Omid Scobie, you've got a letter that she sent to her father-in-law, King Charles, whereby sensitive information from that particular letter was leaked and published in the Dutch version of Endgame. So, based on, her past history with all of this and with what happened when her letter to her actual father was leaked, she might sue Omid Scobie for the same thing. The alleged misuse of private information, infringement of copyright, and breach of the Data Protection Act of 2018. Because sources are coming out quite clearly saying, at the present day, she never intended them to be publicly identified, and that the letter wasn't leaked to Scobie by anyone in her camp. And if we go right at the beginning, when all this kicked off, quote-unquote, the royal racist saga, right? This was, of course, the Oprah interview. And Megxie is explaining that allegedly there were conversations about how dark the skin of the unborn baby Archie was going to be, right? And Oprah said, "You're not going to tell me who had the conversation?" And Megxie said, "I think that would be very damaging to them." So right on the outset, Megxie said that she wouldn't say who, quote unquote, the royal racists were. And she's maintaining that message even now through sources saying she never intended them to be publicly identified. All of a sudden they are, and it's got echoes, as far as I'm concerned, of when her letter to her father was released and published on the Mail on Sunday, right? You've got essentially the similar thing here, in my opinion, conspiracy theory, whatever. And what she did to sue the Mail on Sunday, she might do with Omid Scobie when it comes to Endgame. Again, the alleged misuse of private information, infringement of copyright, and breach of the Data Protection Act 2018. I told you had to watch the full thing to stay at the end because it would all make sense once I built up those building blocks and gave you the conclusion. Makes sense now, doesn't it? Told you this wasn't going to be on your bingo card for 2023, let alone mine. Wow, yeah, Megxie might sue Omid Scobie for Endgame based on what she did with the Mail on Sunday. With that being said, if you appreciated this video and you want more, believe me, of course there's going to be more. I'm not going to let my operation from a couple of days ago stop me. Make sure you subscribe to join our Vault of Nerd tribe. I'll be honest with you, help us get to 100k so we can get that silver play button right there and hopefully cause a Christopher Boozy meltdown on Twitter. Like, share, comment down below your opinion, conspiracy theories, whatever's. Also as well, if you've got some very strong opinions about all of this, and I bet you do, then make sure you send me a super thanks. It's just below this video right here. We can have a conversation about this because it does guarantee a response from me. And until the next time, you guys, laters.